This is a mini episode of the PlaceOS podcast. We're going to talk about design, in particular maps and floor plans, and which have I often say in meetings with clients and partners that user experience is not user interface, and then they want to see something. So the first thing I show them is a graphical user interface, a map. So I'm here with Candy that designs our map and sets the framework for all of the maps that we design. Hi, Candy.
Hello.
So I'm just going to quiz you. We're going to show some of the maps and have a look at some examples, and we'll just talk about do's and don'ts. We won't pick on anybody and show any bad floor plans and maps. But in summary, we use the floor plan to identify rooms and desks and availability, and we do that in real time. We also do that for analytics. So let's dig right in. What map do you want to start with?
Let's start with the most detailed map that we have. So this is an example of a large floor that we have. Usually this isn't the direction that most designers want to do because it takes so much time to complete, but in my opinion, it's what clients really love to see. So this is just an example of detailed desks, and it has everything in it, like even where plants would be. And it has all those desk details and dividers.
So how do you decide how much detail to put into a floor plan?
It all depends on company branding as well. So as you can see, this company has nice blue tones, green that you can use for the plants. Yeah, it's all about having fun with it, what you actually want to put in the effort to do. And what also, the more detail, the more happier the client is.
And I think when I'm showing floor plans compared to some of our competitors that don't put this much detail in, it's harder to actually know like where you are in the building, what's going on, because the engineering floor plans is where they usually start with. But we actually look at, is there plant? So is there a plant there? Is there a kitchen? How do we make it really easy to see if that's a kitchen and not just another long desk? So I think we try to avoid like lots of just rectangles and squares all over the place. We need some sort of visual way of identifying what it is without having to read the key or anything like that.
So one way we can do that for kitchens and things like that is just placing an icon. Could be like a chef's hat or spoon and fork. So we do that usually for the overall stairs and where the facilities are, like toilets, goods lift, and elevators.
Now I see on this floor plan, we also have layers, like a grey layer there over a meeting room. Talk about the way you manage layers and what we can do with that.
So with layers, each layer has to be unique. For example, this level is level 10. The label name is called meeting room. So this room is level 10 and the label would be 1001 because this is meeting room 1. So the way we will do that is tag the level in the physical layer. For example, this is an area, and then we'll just have like a status at the end of that, and we'll tag that so we can find that location.
And then the front-end developers can trigger those layers when we receive the live data from Office 365. They can tell us that scheduling information, or from the desks and the IDs for the desks as well. So does that mean you're going through and adding a layer per desk and per meeting room?
Yeah, so this is manually done. So I have to physically go into each layer, select it, and type in these unique IDs. And
you're just using common tools here though, aren't you? So like Adobe, the Adobe suite to do this.
Yeah, that's correct.
And that means that any designer can do this really if they follow these guidelines. And then on the matching this up to the front end is just using our front end APIs to do so. So any other maps you want to go through and talk about some points of difference?
Yeah, so this map is really detailed. It may be scary to some designers because obviously you don't want to design this very detailed floor for 30 floors. So this is an example of another project that we have done which uses a more simplistic style. As you can see, there's not that much detail, not much of a 3D effect. It's more 2D, but it has all the information that we need and individual layers that are easy to add IDs to.
And what about colors? So here you've got a color that is under the floor plan, really, that light blue. And then you have objects on top that are still within that same color palette. How do you select these colors, and what sort of are some tips there?
So when I select the color palette, I try to think of the room status and the desk status as well. So whether it will be green for available, red for unavailable. So you just want to see if those colors clash before getting into color detail. So for an example here, I just have a room highlighted in green. As you can see, that's easy to see from far away. Another thing that designers can do is also check your contrast checker. So obviously we want to be able to see the text over a room. So I would make that white over this nice green color. As you can see here, that it accepts that most people can see this.
And then in some projects, we won't show an example here, but we also make sure there's colorblind colors selected as well. But a lot of the time, we're just referencing our client's color palette, their brand guidelines, and then for anything that's status, we use traffic light colors because everyone knows what green means and everyone knows what red means when it comes to availability of space. Any final tips before we wrap up?
I'd say the first thing you would have to do is just make sure all the main details are there. Like if you don't want to go full detailed, at least always make sure there's a chair with a table. Just make sure that it actually looks like a table, because you don't just want to have random colors on a map and someone asking, what is this?
Yeah. And there's just so many rectangles that in that example you have up now, it's as simple as putting a chair there so you know that that's a desk. Otherwise, that could be anything.
Right, yeah. You could even confuse just a rectangle with lockers even. So we need to make sure we have those chairs in front of those tables. Yeah,
and then that's where icons might work. So having the difference between lockers and desks might be you have an icon of a lock next to the lockers or something as simple as that. And then representing everything that's icon based in a certain style compared to what's actually there on the physical floor with more detail. One of my favorite things about your maps, Candy, is that detail. Like I remember there was one project where we kept zooming in and there's even more layers. Like you hand drew sushi that would represent the kitchen. But in that case, what we learnt was sometimes too much detail will slow down the loading speed of those maps. So that's also a compromise we have to be aware of. And I think that's about identifying, well, where is this going to live? Is it going to be on a kiosk that caches, stores it offline so we can have as much detail as needed? Or are people loading this for the first time and they're going to have to wait for their maps to load, including every visual layer that you've added to your map?
So yeah, you also have to think of the size of the floor plan. Like if it's a very small floor plan in size, you can add more detail, which won't really affect the file size. But if you have a large floor, say, over 100 rooms, you don't really want to add too much detail because that would load slower.
And it's loading on one single map. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, that's a quick look through. We have a section of our technical documentation where anyone can see your how-to guide from starting and creating the file in Adobe all the way through to tips on how to add objects and layers. So I'll share that in the metadata of this video. Thanks, Candy.
Thank you.